I've flown with hundreds of captains, met hundreds of pilots, and what I'm about to say might surprise you guys. There's a common misconception in aviation that you have to be a young, hungry lion in order to become a pilot, and you have to have basically been born in an aeroplane, and that you have wanted to be a pilot since you were in the womb, that your ancestors were all pilots, that everybody around you were all pilots. And this is the biggest myth you can tell yourself. Many people choose their career path in their 20s and they don't tend to change it thereafter. Think about when you went to university. The majority of people who went to university don't go into a career that matches what their degree even was. It's absolutely normal as a human being to make wrong decisions throughout life. But then do we have to live with those decisions for the remainder of our life? If we're 30, 40, 50 years old, we still have decades of years left within us. So why do that to yourself? Why stick to a career just because it's something that you know? Why say to yourself, oh, if I had another life, I would have done this. Or if I could go back in time, I'd do something else. Why say that to yourself, and why do that to yourself? We only get one shot at life, and if you're not doing something that you love, then what are you actually doing with it? So let me just give you some context and an example of someone I met early on in my career as a pilot. So before you start flying with normal captains, you have to be trained by someone called a training captain. And what they do is they're essentially very, very skilled and experienced captains. These training captains can essentially fly the aeroplane by themselves. They're fully qualified and experienced enough to do that. So they are amongst the elite of pilots. But I had just started out as a pilot, so I was interested as to what sparked my training captain's aspirations of becoming a pilot. When I asked him, his answer really surprised me, to be honest. So starting from the beginning, he said he used to work in IT. He worked for a technology company, and every day he'd go to work. It was a very stable job for him. It brought him in really good money, and he had a relatively comfortable life with the salary and the lifestyle he was living. However, he really, really hated his job. He found himself at the end of the day constantly thinking about work throughout the day, and over time it had massively drained him, as well as his relationships outside of work. He spent a long time feeling quite miserable about life and just thinking to himself, well, this is the path I have chosen. And he said he was in a point in his life where he had made all of the decisions that led him to this point, and he felt that he couldn't really go back and change those decisions. The sad reality of it was that he hadn't actually felt contentment with what he had achieved because he just didn't enjoy what he was doing. He told me that one day he woke up for work, he made his morning coffee and his breakfast, he grabbed his coat, left through the door and got in his car. He realised he had forgotten his ID. He went back into the house and started looking for his ID. He then found his ID about 10 minutes later and quickly ran back to his car, started his car up, the engine started pumping away, and he started driving on his way to work. Now, on his way to work, he was halted at a motorway junction. Some time had passed, and he was evidently late for work. He had informed his manager that he was going to be late for work. So that side of things had been settled. He'd seen loads of ambulances and police cars whiz past him. The police started walking down the queues, asking people to start sifting towards the side lanes. And he asked the police officer, what just happened? Why is there such a hold up here? The police officer replied to him saying, unfortunately, we've had a pretty major accident and there's been a massive pile-up of cars leading to multiple deaths. And he said that in that moment he had a massive epiphany in his mind. He said to himself, had he not left his ID at home, that could have easily have been him in that position, lying dead and lifeless. He asked himself, if I had died today, would I really be content with what I had achieved? And would I really be happy? It was at that moment he decided, no, I wouldn't. And he said he quit his job. He took out his life savings and invested it all towards pilot training. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just giving you an example of someone that decided that he had had enough of his daily life and lying to himself about what he actually wanted in life. So he took all of his money out. He started training. 3 years later, he landed a job with a short-haul airline. He started flying for that short-haul airline and then moved on to another short-haul airline on a bigger aircraft. He flew for that airline for 6 years and became a captain with the airline. Then 2 years later, he became a training captain with the airline. Now, the training captains, like I mentioned, are amongst the best of the best. So he has come from that position till now in the space of about 10 years. When did he start? He started in his late 30s. And he said to me that he did not regret a single day of his life since. And he wakes up every morning really excited for work and really content with his life. When I say this, I don't want this to just be another story for you to hear about someone who got into the industry. I want to show you that it's possible. No matter who you are, no matter what background, no matter how old you are, it is possible for you to become a pilot, and you can mold your future with your actions. Another example of this is whilst I was doing my training, it was circulating that there was a 55-year-old woman who was also trained to become a pilot. I later found out that she was also tagged throughout the training with an airline, which means she had to do an even tougher initial assessment than I had to do, and she passed it. And I was decades of years younger than her, and from a commercial standpoint, I would have been with the airline for longer potentially. But they took her instead. There's no such thing as starting late as a pilot. I'd say when you're starting with more life experience, you have a greater angle than someone like myself who has had no life experience but has applied for the same role as you. You've accumulated throughout life a lot more pilot competencies than I have, and that is what airlines look for, and that is what makes a good pilot. As soon as you've got your foot in the door, you and I have a level playing field. Like that lady, retirement age is 65 years old for a pilot, and it didn't stop her. So I'm telling you now, it shouldn't stop you either. Your age is not a factor when it comes to being a pilot. Your age shouldn't be a factor when it comes to making a decision about your life. I would say now, in this current climate, is the best time to pursue this career. Now we are in a period where there's an exponential need for pilots in this current climate. Again, I can tell you from my own experience, it doesn't matter your background, your age, where you've come from, you can do it as long as you apply your mind towards it. If you'd like to reach out to me and we can try and make it happen together, I'll attach my Instagram so that you can give me a message and we can talk about how we can pursue it together, and I can give you some guidance if it's a completely new world to you. Thank you guys so much for listening to me today. I hope that I've inspired some of you, and I hope that I've cleared up the fact that you do not have to be in your teens or in your 20s in order to pursue this career. Thank you guys very much for listening. If you do me a massive favor and like and subscribe to me, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll do my best to increase and improve the quality of my videos so that it can reach as many of you guys as possible. Thank you so much for listening today.